could have. I could have. I could have.
Good morning, everyone. It's Janice from Fleurs, and I'd like to welcome you back into my studio today for a little introduction to March's project. So for March, I am going to start a new quilting project that I will feature on the channel. And we are going to really do it in the same way that I did the Geometry Dash quilt. So I'll have about a month where I work through the entire process of making the quilt pattern, and I will share that in chunks of steps for you. And if you would like to work along with me, you can purchase the pattern, and it's kind of a very loose form quilt-a-long. This month I also have created sort of a week by week listing of what I will be working on, sort of the processes. And if you would like to grab a copy of that for yourself, you can sign up for my Le Rue de Fleurs newsletter. I will link that below for you. You can also find that by going to my blog, leroudefleurs.com/blog, and I will put it up in a post on that, so you can download that for yourself if you would like to sort of follow along and know what I will be talking about week by week. This month, for March, I am going to do my Shattered Squares Quilt Pattern. So you can purchase this in my shop, and I will have it on special from March 5th to the 18th. So it's about 2 weeks if you would like to grab it for yourself. It will be half off, and you can give it a try. I will try to get the printed patterns up, but right now they're just the digital downloads, so you can download it and then print it out for yourself however you would like. So this, I'm going to do the throw size, and I am really making it for my children. So we are redoing our media room, which you may have seen a few snippets of that here and there on my Instagram page, Le Rue de Fleurs, and we are doing really leaning into the media room. It's sort of a dark room in our basement, and we have a very large TV. We're building in a new bookcase around it, and then we're going to do a nice little nook for my son for his computer things. And then that's where they hang out with their friends. They're teenagers now, so they need kind of their own cool hangout spot. So we're redoing that room to make it a bit nicer for them to use with their friends. And the color that I chose is called Alpine Trail, and it's a really beautiful dark green, sort of like an emerald tone with a lot of blue undertones. So that is the color scheme that I'm going for, and I'm so happy that everybody on Instagram, I put up a little poll with 2 different choices, and I'm so happy that everybody on Instagram chose Alpine Forest, because that was really what I was most excited to create and make this time around. So I will be making a throw quilt, and on the pattern, in the pattern there are many sizes. So it's pillow, and then from a crib size to a queen size quilt. So I give you all of the necessary measurements and amounts of fabric for each of those sizes. I'm going to make a large throw because it will be for on a couch in a media room. But so you can get a little bit better idea of what the pattern looks like. Here is the very first sample that I created. This is my Ice Ice Baby quilt, and it just reminds me of colors of winter. So you can see that the pattern uses half square triangles, but kind of in a different way. And then they have a split down the middle, and then they're connected by large portions of background. So I think this looks really fun to either decide to use solids here and feature a print in the background, or reverse it and do features of prints in the background, like a low volume. That's what's on the cover. That was my cover one, but I sold that quilt. So that was all low volume prints in sort of off-white and taupe and light brown. And then I used very autumnal solid colors in the square portion. This one I went with the solids as well, and then a polka dot all over background. So that's an idea for that. And then I have also this example to share that is using up some other scraps. So I did multiple prints here and then split it up with some solids. So I have this really bold and saturated like ditzy floral. This was a vintage piece that I just had a small amount of, and this is another quilt that is great to use up your scraps. So if you want to do scrap busting this year, which is what I'm really trying to focus on, I mean, I have a large collection of fabrics, some of which I bought with really no intention, just because I loved, and then I like to try to find ways to mix them all together. So I'm trying to help you do that, and that's what we're going to talk about next today, is how I come up with some of my bundles. I know people really enjoyed the video that I did for Geometry Dash and how I choose and mix my fabrics, and so I'm hoping that continuing this series in a very similar vein will give you all really good ideas to use up what you have, and we'll talk about that. That's going to be part of my Build Your Best Bundle series. So talking about how to take a little starting off point, your spark fabric that gives you the idea, and then building on that to round out a bundle for yourself, so that you can use up some of the pretty things that maybe have just been sitting in your stash. They're beautiful, we need to use them. Get them out of the cupboard, off of the wall, and onto something that you can use and enjoy, or gift and enjoy giving to someone who will love it. But this one features some low volume prints here on the squares, and then more saturated colors in the background, and mixing and offsetting those solids with the very dark saturated print. And then I also made like 2 other things with it, but I sold those as well, so I only have those to show. But anyhow, you get the idea of what the pattern looks like. So I am going to go ahead and pop you on the overhead and sort of walk you through my fabric selection and the idea behind it, so that you can get an idea of what I will be working with all of March. And then, so March I'm going to run through working through the Shattered Squares Quilt Pattern. Again, this is for sale in my Etsy shop if you'd like to play along, and I super appreciate your support by purchasing a pattern. It helps me create revenue that offset some of the time that I put in to do these things that otherwise don't get paid for. So that is much appreciated if you decide to buy a pattern and play along. If not, I hope that you find another pattern in your stash that maybe has a similar feature where it has spots for you to mix and combine different fabrics, to dance around and sort of play off of one another in a very geometric way. So you could also do this if you bought the Geometry Dash quilt pattern in November and December. Thank you very much. And this would also be a fun one. I mean, you could also kind of take the same concept and work it for that. Okay, so let's pop on the overhead and play with fabric. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab a sip of coffee, and then let's talk fabric, everybody's favorite. So here is the pattern, and I will link it below if you're interested in grabbing that. And then otherwise, what I'm trying to do this month is use up stuff that's in my stash that I absolutely love, that has that same blue-green vibe as my room. So something that's going to coordinate with the colors that I'm putting on my walls, which again is called Alpine Trail, and that's what is totally inspiring this. It's sort of a blue-green emerald color, so very similar here to this rifle paper fabric that I have just a small amount of. For the Shattered Squares, like I said, it's wonderful for using up scraps. So they need to be at least 6.5 inches wide, okay, to work for this pattern. So anything that is bigger than 6.5 inches is going to work. And then we'll cut it up into the different pieces. So I recommend in the pattern, I believe for the throw size, about 6 to 8 different fabrics that you would like to work with, but you could do more or less depending on how scrappy you want it to look. So that's totally up to you, but you need to have a piece that's like 6.5 at least, okay? So this is a gorgeous print. I love it. I want sort of like a woodland forest theme also. I'm just totally leaning into that Alpine Trail name. So that is what is definitely inspiring me. So this is one of my first picks. And I also have this, which is just totally the wrong green, but you could see how if you wanted to go with more of a, like a olive sort of tones or the limes and stuff, you can use some of the same fabrics and then you get a totally different look. So it's just about picking the undertones that work with what you want to focus on and then pulling that through the whole way. So like some of these could still work together, but a lot of them I went with the cooler, bluer undertone for my thing. So I'm gonna set that aside, that doesn't work. Okay, so I have this rifle paper. I also really want to have a wood grain, so I'm going to look and see as we lay this out if I like what I've chosen with this gray, because the flooring in our entire basement is like a gray, sort of gray taupish wood grain linoleum. So I would really love if I feel like this looks good with everything, but I haven't laid them all out together. I just pulled this right before starting the video. So I wanted to see if I like it with that, if it's a good possibility, because I think it will help bring all of the elements of my room together, and that's really what I'm wanting to do. And that's what I'm thinking about. So that's my focus. So whatever your focus is, if you know someone, if you're creating for them and they have a nursery and you're making a baby blanket or baby quilt, if you're making something for someone's bed quilt or as a gift, think of colors that they like and motifs that they like, something that can be your guiding principle as you work through looking through fabric. So whether you're purchasing something online or you're going through your stash, you need to create a theme or a central element that's going to guide all of your choices, okay? So for me, it is thinking Alpine Trail, the title of my piece, and then other elements that I have in my room that I want to make sure to coordinate with. So like the flooring, the color of the couch. The couch in there is a light tan. So I wanted to introduce something that went nicely with the fabric that I loved, that I really wanted to use, that had the emerald and sort of the blues in it, and then also brings in tan. So my next choice is this very gorgeous art gallery print from several years ago. It's Bonnie Christine, and it's part of the Hello Bear collection. I'm not sure if they still sell that, but they sell things very similar to this. If you can't find this exact one and you still love this print, they've remixed it so many times. And I love Art Gallery, the fact that they remix some of their most popular prints and sort of do them over in a bunch of different colorways and still continue that, because you know, I just adore this. I've used this print for years now and I do not get sick of it. So I of course had to include that. Now that's bringing in like that lighter minty blue color. So now I have that to work with, a different tone, but they're the same undertone, right? So it's a darker emerald, bluey emerald color, and then this lighter minty color. And now I have the tan. So I've introduced the tan element. That's perfect, but it can't exist just once. You can't have it just existing one time or it doesn't make any sense, right? So I need something else that has that similar color. So I went into my stash and I found this. That is, let's see if we have yes, Garden Collage by Lynette Jensen for Thimbleberries. It's an RJR fabric from 2016. So I have no idea if you can get this anymore, but you could look for a similar hashtag or texture print. So that's another thing you want to consider, is pulling the color story together through multiple variations of that same color and in different tones, and fabrics that are speaking to one another. But also we want to have a big feature print that is setting the tone for our entire collection of what we're doing. It's on theme, it's on brand. This one has those woodland features. Now we're doing it in a different way, right? It's a different size and density of print. This has much more spread out print, but it also is featuring those alpine forest, pine trees. Now here we're having more of a texture. So we're moving into the textures because we can't have everything being just a big feature print. We need some things that are more geometric, that add interest, but allow our eye to rest, that we don't have to focus on the story of every single piece of fabric. So that's what this one is doing here. It's also got that same, like a little bit bluer of the alpine fabric there, but it is still very much in that same blue-green tones. And then it's got this nice caramel. It's a little bit more golden than my tree there, but very similar. So I'm happy with that. That's a great choice. That's next. Then I needed to find something else that continued my theme. And so since this is a little bit more golden, I found this beautiful print that I absolutely love. It's very emerald, so this is almost getting to a little bit more of a yellow undertone with the gold, but I still think it works really nicely. It's not too much. This is Christmas on Brambleberry Ridge, and I cut off the rest of the information, so I don't remember the manufacturer, but I think it was Michael Miller, and I think this, again, is from several years ago. So, but I just love it. I have a nice sized cut that I can still use up. And again, it's continuing that theme, right? So it's got another element of the trees. This time it's a much wider print, and it has a couple of little animals. So I don't want to go too young because my children aren't young anymore, and I'm hoping that this whole remodel will span several years of their lives as they mature, and I won't have to redecorate. So I don't want to go too juvenile, but I don't think that these are too juvenile looking of little animals, and there's not a ton of little animals. They're more just like silhouettes there, and I think that works really well. So I'm continuing that on. It's also got that beautiful dramatic green. So here's where we're at now. Then I've got that texture. I wanted some other texture, right? So something else with a little bit of sparkle, because now I've introduced that golden sparkle. I want to continue with that. So then I went into my stash and I found this new purchase I got from Stash Fabrics. I will try to link that if I can still find it. This is the new one from Ruby Star Society, and it is Melody Miller's, and I think it's called Camellia, the collection. I just love this. It's such a beautiful confetti print. And again, it's just another geometric. It's completely different though. It's very playful, and it's bringing in a few other colors. It's got that dark emerald. It's got that same blue that's back here, right? It's got the same blue. It's got that dark emerald. It's got sort of this taupey color, but it's a bronze instead of the taupe, but it's glitzy, so it's speaking back to this other metallic that I introduced, and now it's pulling in white and like pops of pink for me. So a little bit of a different color that's like completely opposite on the color wheel, that's going to give me a little bit of that fun contrast, a little bit of that unexpected. So then I went into my stash to find something that speaks to that unexpected, right? But it still has those other colors, and I found this one. Okay, so this is a print that I cut all the information off, but I do believe, if I remember correctly, it's April Rhodes for Art Gallery, and maybe her collection was called Wanderer. I believe that was from maybe 2016, 2018, I don't really remember, but back in that era. So I don't know if you could find it anymore, but you could look for something that had maybe a little bit of a wash of color that isn't really a geometric. It's more of a texture or that wash, and it's blending a bunch of colors. So what it's doing for me here is it's picking up a little bit of those pink tones that I have in my polka dot. It's also got some of the caramels that are in these two fabrics. It's got bronze glitz that is in this polka dot, and it's also a little bit of the same metallic-y feel as what's in this print. And then it's got those original like emerald tones and soft greens and a little bit of blue. It's got that powder blue that speaks back to this periwinkle color in my original print. So I love that. I'm including that one there. Then it got me looking for something that's maybe a little bit more blue based and that has that same washed appearance. So this is a digitally printed piece that I ordered for someone's custom project from California International Fabrics 2019, Hoffman Fabrics. It's called Painted Forest. I'm not sure if you can still find it. I don't know that I love that it has purple in it. I'm not sure I want to introduce another purple color, but I do like the wash print. And sometimes I try something, I pull it, and then I might cut up and make a block with it and just experiment if I like that, or if I find that it's ignorable. Sometimes I'll just choose to ignore a color and not introduce it in something else and just let everything else sort of drown that out and focus more on like pulling in a little bit more of the blue tones. So, and the painterly wash look. This one has a small sort of abstract floral field print, which I really like. It makes me think of alpine forests where you get up into that zone where just the little tiny wildflowers grow and feel like trees, larger trees kind of can't survive anymore. It's also got that same powdery blue colors as is in my original alpine inspiration print and some of the little flower details. So I'm going to try this one. I'm a little bit on the fence about it. I don't know how you feel when you pull things for your bundle, but I think it's not quite as cohesive as the rest of what I have going on, but I'm gonna try it because sometimes those unexpected things end up making the quilt in a really quiet way. I'm not sure if I'm describing that, but I like those little elements that maybe are that unexpected that most people wouldn't choose. And I think that puts your personal stamp in things, the way that you choose to mix your fabrics together. So then going back to a little bit classic, I have this that is left over from the Geometry Dash. It's got that furnish print. It's very emerald and very dark, and I think this will be a really nice mix. I will have to watch like playing with all of these, what I choose to put next to one another too, and that can be something that you think about when you're working with a scrappy pattern, like what looks nice next to something else, you know? So you wouldn't want all of your dots and things like that to be grouped together. You wouldn't want all of your greens or all of your burgundies in this example to be like mashed up next to one another. So that's something we'll talk about when we make the blocks and do the layout portion of the quilt. But it's also a good thing to keep in mind when you're pulling your fabrics. So you want to have a cohesion, but you also want to have variety so you can mix things up. So after I chose those, oh yeah, then another print that I have, let's go back to the wash because I think this makes more sense with that. This one. So I could just do this one and eliminate the blue. And I might end up doing that because this has that beautiful wash look to it and like treetops and misty mountain kind of vibe. I love it. I cut all the information off this and I have absolutely no idea what it is, but you could look for something that has a similar like wash to it. Again, that would has the same feel there. I do like that this has the very dark emerald, and then it bleeds into all the colors, and it even brings in a little bit of that more olive tone, which I really like. So I may not use the blue. I may just use this one to fulfill that like washed color need, but I thought I would show you. Just sometimes I just pull, kind of thinking about what direction I want it to go into. But that being said, it may make more sense with the blue once I found this fern print as well. So now I'm getting a little bit more of those blues, and I'm pulling that blue through that I have in my original print back here. Now I have it in my polka dot print. I have some of those like more aqua tones in my hashtag print. And I have this nice, beautiful like blue that's in the polka dot.
and in this one. So maybe it's making more sense. So just keep going. Sometimes that's my advice too, is just keep looking for things that you can pull that through. So you're getting that color story. You're building a tale for people out of your fabric, right? So these are like a larger print. This is my largest print that I have now until I found this beautiful, ginormous polka dot from Tula Pink. And this is a wide back that I have from several years ago. I think this is discontinued now. You might remember it if you've been around for a while quilting, but it has these large like floating sparrows in it. And again, this has got that olive. So it would be maybe used sparingly, but it has that tone that's in the fern here for me. And some of this wash print there. It's got basically the same background color as my Bonnie Christine pine print, and it's a polka dot, which I already introduced polka dots. So there it's pulling through a bunch of the same themes. It's also got animals. This is my only other print that has an animal, and I may or may not hit that when I cut into it, but I'm good because it still goes on several other layers with everything else that I've chosen. So that one, we already spoke about this. It's got the fern print in the smaller size. It's got that dark green. It's got a little bit more of those yellow tones. So I think that's helping where I'm hitting into the olive a little bit. And then finally, I've got this very soft, small little fern print that's got that neutral background that I think is going to help bring in my wood grain, right? So now I've got a little bit of something that speaks to that wood grain, that gray, because this is a very light sort of like hashtag of, or like a texture in like a gray green. So I think that's getting me there. I really want to include that. I might not. I may go try to find something that is a little bit of a warmer, more brown, you know, like it a little bit more brown, gray, green. Like I did have this one that I used in the pillow that I did, the Anakin pillow. I don't have enough of it, but I do get it from my local quilt shop, so I could probably go back and get more. And that might work really nicely because it has those warmer taupes, but it is also pulling in that gray. So I may go get this or something similar because I feel like this is maybe a little too gray for what else I have going on. So I think I like this better. I may go buy some more of this, okay? But you can see that I wanted to introduce that element of the wood texture, and it needs to coordinate and talk back to all the other stuff that I have going on. So look for something else that's got, if you're trying to play along, we need a feature fabric that's setting the tone. Here I'm going with that Alpine Trail. You need multiple fabrics that are either a geometric, like a dot, and you want to repeat that in different sizes, right? So I've got this smaller confetti style. I've got this mega oversized one, so that's my dots. I've got textures, so I've got the wood grain and the hashtag and the painterly stripes and blobs. And then once I've gotten that wash and painterly effect in, I can pull in some other things that are a little bit more painterly, so they continue to talk to one another. I've got small and large different scales of my feature theme element. So I've got these very large woodland prints. I've got the fern print very large. Then I've got a small version of the fern print. And I've got a smaller version or a more clustered version of a woodland print. And then a more spaced out version of the woodland print. So you want to have them repeating but in different sizes and different elements. That's what helps create that visual interest while telling your story, okay? And then finally, to finish it all off, I was gifted from a colleague at the museum I work at who also does fiber arts, so a nice big cut of this like taupey light tan background fabric. It's tone on tone. Love the low volume. It's got a very subtle like fern or pine needle print with maybe like little berries or pine cones, maybe it reads as. So perfect for this, which is really making me think that I need more of a brownish wood tone to stay on that brown, and this will help it coordinate. This brown is what's going to be my background. It's subtle, it's soft, it continues the theme. You could do a solid if you like, but I have this, so I'm going to use it. And that's kind of the name of the game here for me, is I'm going to use what I have, look through it, and make it work. And luckily I am drawn to the same things over and over again. And you'll find that as if you're not having a large stash, if you haven't been doing this for years, if you continuously buy what you love, you will find that you are developing a style. So it's not always bad to buy things without a purpose. I mean, certainly don't overdo it. You want to use up what you're purchasing. You don't want to just waste your money buying nonsense. But I do find that letting myself be drawn from things from time to time and just getting them, not really knowing what the plan is, helps me build my stash in a way that is totally true to my style. And then when I go to mix and match things, I'm able to build that story. I'm able to tell my tale through my fabric because I've let it just evolve naturally over some time. So don't be afraid to just every once in a while pick up that thing that's really calling to your heart, because that is where you really start to develop your personal signatures. So that's okay to do that. But this one was a gift, but it just works perfectly for me here. It's very, very on point for this particular grouping of fabrics. It's going to work amazingly well. And I have a large amount of it, which is amazing. So you need over 3 yards for the pattern to do the throw for the background. I usually round up a little bit, so you could try to sneak it in, but I would stick with that, what the pattern says. And then I have a bunch of this. I also have another like semi-large cut, so I could use this again, which is amazing, or I could use it on the back, or I could use it also for the binding. So I hope that helped today. If you would like to play along, again, I will include the blog link so that you can grab the schedule and a little bit of a more summarized version of what we talked about here today in the video. And I can't wait to see you in March to make our Alpine Trail Shattered Squares quilt. So thanks for joining me today, and stay creative, friends.
I could have.